I recently did a video about how to spot a borderline female from a mile away. In it, I used the diagnostic criteria from the DSM-4 to explain the 9 most prominent traits that borderlines display. The thing is that many of these symptoms, when they present themselves in the context of a relationship, are already doing damage. By the time you can say for sure that she's BPD, you may have a huge mess on your hands. So rather than playing armchair hindsight psychologist, it is better to make sure you don't have to. Life with a borderline is a bitch. Figuring out relationship problems by sifting through the ashes of what's left of your life is a bitch too. Better that you learn to spot women with BPD and women with borderline traits, which are even more common, not from a mile away, but from mere inches and when you first meet them. That's the subject of today's talk on An Ear for Men. Borderline women are dangerous. In their wake, they leave men who are broke, incarcerated, demonized, and sometimes dead. That's not a joke or hyperbole. It is a fact of life. If you have a son and you never talk to him about borderline personality disorder or BPD traits, then you are helping him prepare to get hung on a cross. And yes, there are males with BPD, so this information is important to gay men as well. It's important to women too, but since there's already a disproportionate amount of support for women in this society, I'm confining my talk to how the disorder affects men. Keep in mind that this information won't do anyone any good if they're still a slave to romantic chivalry and the power of infatuation. While those fatal flaws are active, it makes it impossible to put any of this into perspective, much less practice. If you can't think straight from the beginning when it comes to a woman, you're only helping her sharpen the blade that she will invariably slide into your back. Because of that, I have added permanent links in the low bar to information on romantic chivalry and gynocentrism. Now, down to business. Here are some of the easiest ways to tell if you're dealing with a woman who has BPD or enough borderline traits that she belongs in your rearview mirror anyway. 1. Too much information too soon. Intimate details of personal life tragedies, abusive relationships, being the alleged victim of crimes like rape, incidents of childhood sexual abuse, and the like are not first date conversation material for anyone with a sense of boundaries. They are not for second or third dates either. This kind of information is for people you have grown close to and in whom you have developed some sense of trust. Quickly regurgitating all your life's hardships and trauma, real or imagined, soon after meeting someone is a big tell for personality problems. Borderline women lead with this stuff to trigger and manipulate men's protective instinct, to put them in a hero mode because heroes always put their interests in the back seat. So, if you go to dinner and she starts telling you that her father molested her before you're looking at the dessert menu, forget about the pie a la mode and just ask for the check. 2. Too sexual, too fast. This is not about slut shaming, even though I will wager that most guys with their shit together aren't going to get serious about a woman who shows up to a first date acting and looking like anybody's baby. The point is that the sex, the hot, steamy, kinky sex that she soft pitches you right away, is a serious sign that you're dealing with a woman who's 2 French fries short of a value meal. One of the borderline's greatest tools for control is sex. As I've said before, many BPD women are very attractive with highly sexualized personas. This puts younger men at the prime of their sexual development and at the low end of their intellectual priorities at the most risk. From the late teens to the mid-20s is when men's hormones and natural urges have the loudest, most commanding voice in their head. It is also the ages when women are at the peak of their sexual attractiveness. That's a slanted but accurate reality that weighs heavily against men. It is an exciting and fun time of life for a lot of young men. It is also the time that they can be easily played, like a PS4 in a frat house. It's difficult to intervene on this. Did you ever try to talk sense to an 18-year-old who's hooking up with a hottie who's willing to do anything he likes behind closed doors, or in the mall elevator for that matter? Have you ever tried to point out when he's blowing money on her like a high roller, or when he's going around like a trained seal balancing a beach ball on his nose for his next piece of fish out of a bucket? Hard as it is, even when it is nearly impossible to get his attention, this is the time that they need the guidance of older men who care about them, men who at least attempt to let them know they are headed for possibly very serious problems. If they don't think about what you're saying at the moment, they may well learn from it after the rug is pulled out from underneath their feet. There just seems to be something about a bruised ass that has a positive impact on a younger man's ears. Number 3, she views porn as cheating. On this one, I'm not just talking about borderlines. Look, it is understandable that a lot of women aren't wired to like porn. There are 2 realities that play in this. One, women don't have the visual sexual orientation of men, and 2, they are jealous of the attention they feel is being stolen from them. So I am not suggesting that it's a good idea or even respectful to her to have some fuck-bunny porn star as the screensaver on your PC. And telling her truthfully that porn is not personal to you probably won't help either. Just remind yourself that if she's like most women, she has a vibrator, full charged and ready to go under her bed, and it is not there for sore spots and stiff muscles. She masturbates, just like you, only she has just a different way to do it. She wants to rationalize that because she uses her imagination and a vibrator, that it is somehow morally superior to your using imagery and your hand. She is, of course, full of shit about this, but can, with time and maturity, get the picture. But if she hangs doggedly to the narcissistic fantasy that even mild and fleeting sexual interest in anything but her is somehow diminishing of her value as a woman, then you have a crazy on your hands. She maintains this belief not out of morality, but out of the highly immoral desire to control you like a dog on a leash. You can be a good boy and comply. You can sit and heel like a champion at a dog show. Just know that it will only lead to more and more extreme forms of control. Oh, and to be clear, I'm not saying that a woman has to like porn to prove she's not a borderline. But if she thinks digital imagery is your mistress and that a quick jerk is an affair, she needs to grow out of it. If she can't, then she may well have a personality disorder or something just as bad. 4, she quickly calls on your gallantry by damseling. This one is a dead towel. One of the many ways a borderline will attempt to gain complete control early on is with the quick damsel. She will tell you of her woes with an ex. You know, that jerk she told you about on the first date and how he still won't leave her alone. She may talk about some other family member who is out to get her, a boss that is an alleged harasser, or something else similar to that. She might even have a child she can't control, who needs a firm hand from a real man like you. When she plays that sob story card, you and most men for that matter will feel the instant instinct to find a way to protect her. You won't think about the fact that 1, it may all be bullshit, and 2, if there is truth to it, you could wind up shot or at the very least on an unwitting, unending, and life-consuming crusade that was not in your plans before you met her. Here's a hint, guys. If you meet someone and then find yourself transformed into a white knight on a matter that started before you met her, you're being played. No exceptions. Number 5, love bombing. I included this one in my last Thursday tip, and I did so for a good reason. Love bombing is when she launches repeated sorties of gushing love using laser-guided hellfire missiles of adoration that are locked onto your heart. She tells you before she knows your middle name that you're the mostest specialist person she has ever met in her whole life, or at least in the last 24 hours. She literally puts a crane hook between your legs and hoists you up atop a pedestal so high you get a nosebleed, where the oxygen is too thin to catch your breath. It is a perch no human being can remain on for any length of time. Now, if you have narcissistic tendencies yourself, you'll probably react to all her fawning adulation about how great you are with, how did she know? But if you're not, if you're normal, you may get caught up in all the approval and believe that she actually sees you as some sort of savior. And you may start trying to act like one, which is precisely what she wants. Guys, it only makes the fall that much harder, and the fall is as certain as sunrise in the morning. When you find yourself to be the target of a love bomb, and she tells you how remarkably perfect you are after a few hours of spending time together, try asking, how could you possibly know that? You barely know me. Then set your watch for her explosion of indignation for not appreciating all the wonderful things she said about you. Or, if she's really subtle, you'll see an expression on her face that tells you she doesn't like being busted. Either way, it's a borderline, dude. Run. Number 6, she shows any signs that she uses shame as control. Using shame to control is the tactic of abusive parents and borderline women. And get this clearly, borderline women are the world's foremost experts on controlling men with guilt and shame. They can make the Vatican look like a camp for hedonists. Spotting these things is simple. Terms like real man, hero, and even white knight are the tells. Questions like, what kind of man are you? Or statements like, you're the man, are giveaways. By the way, that last one, you're the man, almost always comes up when something dangerous, expensive, or labor-intensive is involved. If that is not a bullhorn in your ear screaming run, then it's only because you're intent on keeping your head in the sand and your ass up high and exposed. The point here is that anytime you find yourself doing something she asked you to do when you really didn't want to, simply because you would feel ashamed to refuse, you're being played. It is easy, even cowardly, to give in and go that way. The thing that takes courage, that points to your being a real man, if you insist on using that stupid term, is your ability and willingness to look her in the eye and say no. Now, here's the catch about all this stuff. All of these 6 subtle tells about the borderline personality and borderline traits are not so subtle at all if you're looking for them. Also, they are present to some degree in almost all women. It is a part of a culture of personality perversion that is worthy of yet another video. But just because a woman demonstrates any one of these behaviors does not mean she's a BPD. On the other hand, if she demonstrates all or some of them consistently, then you have a problem on your hands, the solution to which is found only at the nearest exit. Even if she's not a borderline, if she engages in this stuff as a matter of routine, she might as well be. Now, this has a bad side and a good side. The bad side is that it totally forces you into the driver's seat. The responsibility is all on you to evaluate, test, and screen for problems that can, if left unchecked, cost you money, your freedom, and even your life. The good news is that it totally forces you into the driver's seat. The opportunity is all yours to evaluate, test, and screen for problems that can, if left unchecked, cost you money, your freedom, and even your life. It is certainly more of an art than a science. You will need to learn to rely on your gut and your instincts. Only you can look at her behavior and make the determination whether she is normal but teachable or disordered and irreversibly dangerous. The trick is in knowing that if you let your sex drive or your programming in romantic chivalry do the screening, you might as well just accept life as a borderline magnet and call it a day. Spend your time preparing for family court hell and saying goodbye to your children if you are unfortunate enough to have had any with this kind of woman. The one great, I'd say spectacular strength of men is their logic and ability to calmly and rationally evaluate circumstances in life well enough to make sound, wholesome decisions. Their one great weakness is that this strength is often hobbled when it comes to dealing with females. In the end, though, every man who wants to succeed must live with the truth that no one has a gun to his head and that he has a choice about what he's going to do. Winding up with a destructive borderline completely trashing your life only happens because you allow it. There are no victims, just volunteers. Well, that's it for today's talk on An Ear for Men. As always, I hope you've enjoyed, even if you haven't, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, it's time for Thursday's Tip of the Week again. Remember, your values are often a harder guide to follow than your penis or your urge to play romantic chivalrist. The former can get you scorned and rejected. The latter can get you pats on the head and occasionally a booty to tap. But I've never gotten an email from a man begging me for help because he was in trouble for putting his values ahead of his desire to please a woman. And trust me, I get a lot of letters from men begging for help. The sad news is that when I write these guys back, it is almost always to tell them that there's nothing I can do for them. I always suggest they get a lawyer if they can still afford to pay for one, but I know that lawyers, like borderlines, can have catastrophic results too. Remember that while your values come with a higher risk of rejection, it is always by women who are doing you a favor to get lost. I'd much rather get an email from you complimenting or even criticizing my work than telling me you need help trying to stay out of prison. Well, thanks again for watching. Remember, subbing to this channel, liking the videos, and sharing them on other social media platforms helps us spread the message. So does visiting the Patreon page and making a pledge. The link for that is also in the low bar. Here's to you, your values, and to a crazy free life. Bye-bye now.